All right, so today I'm going to show you a technique on how to get a nice high-end sheen on a mix without just cranking up EQs. And I'm going to walk you through why I'm doing it this way instead of just using EQs, and show you this method that could be used in a lot of situations. And maybe this will spark some creativity for you if you've never considered this, and give you some ideas about how you can use it in your own projects. So let's get on into it. So I'm remixing this old home studio recording, and the original recordings are just not that great. So I've opted to have some fun with it and just try to overproduce it a little bit. But in the process of this, I have done a lot of subtractive EQ on the high end, because the high end is just really harsh. And that's not such a bad thing, because that gives me an opportunity to fill it in the way that I want. I want to fill out the high end with harmonic overtones. So naturally, I'm using an exciter and some saturation and some upwards compression, but I'm also taking the opportunity to do it in a mid-side technique. So I've created these effects sends that are geared specifically towards this sheen on the high end, and I've been calling it the sparkle bus. Now, in Studio One, effects sends and buses are really similar, so I end up doing a lot of my effects on buses. Down here in the bottom right, I got this sparkle bus here, the left one that's highlighted, and the right one is for the vocals, and they're almost identical. Slightly different plate reverbs on them, and slightly different saturation, but the main difference is in the mid-side arrangement. And I'll show you all that in a second, but take a listen to this mix with both of these sparkle buses turned off, and then I'll toggle them on for you so you can hear the high end kind of come to life. And the idea here is, even though I'm still working on this and it's by no means finished, is that I want to fill out the high end in a way that's not harsh. So take a listen.
Well, I found my feet on a mountainside where the frozen granite done kiss the sky. Lips as cold as ice. Now the winter's up here, done rocked me blind. No tinder, no flint, just wind and cold moonshine.
All right, so let me walk you through the arrangement here. Now, both of these sparkle buses are in the same order as far as the effects chain, which is something that I have just saved as a preset, so I can drag it into a bus or an effects send real easy whenever I need something like this, and then just modify it to taste. Now, the first sparkle bus I'm using for the electric guitar bus, the snare bus, and the cymbals, all of the things that I had to do high-end reductions on, and I want to brighten back up. And the first thing in the chain is a parametric EQ, and there's a big low shelf here because I only want this up in the high end. And then there's a mid-side split up here. So the dark blue high shelf is in the mids, and then above it is a high-end shelf boost that's only in the sides. So this way the air on the snare drum and the high end of the guitars and the cymbals will be shining out on the sides. And over on the vocal sparkle bus, it's kind of the reverse. I have the mids highlighted in the high end and the sides decreased. And I did a slightly different taper here on the low shelf because I do want the sparkle to hit that 2K range, which is really crucial for the vocal. So the parametric mid-side EQ comes first in this effects chain. And the next thing is this free exciter called Stimulate. And for those of you that don't know, an exciter is like a saturator that is geared towards high frequencies. So I have this one set at about 7K. So I'm trying to give a nice general harmonic boost to that high range to bring the high end back without an EQ. And I'm using only even harmonics here and no odd, because the odd does tend to be a little harsher. So that's what this exciter is doing, is it's adding a lot of harmonic content into the high end of the mix from 7K and up. And the next thing in the chain is another saturator. This is also a free saturator by Tokyo Dawn Labs, which is fantastic. And I have this response set to the high frequencies. So this is adding more saturation in on top of the exciter. And then next comes a plate reverb, and I used slightly different plate reverbs for the two sparkle buses. And normally I put saturation after a reverb. In this method, it actually sounded better with the plates coming after the saturation. And the last thing in the chain is OTT, with the upwards compression cranked all the way up and the downwards compression right in the middle. So this is there to push all of the subtle harmonics and the plate reverb up. But I only have the mix at 30% because it's way easy to overdo it with this. And I'm still playing around with this. I might dial it back further, but that's the effects chain. We start with mid-side EQ, and then we add the exciter, and then we add more saturation, and then we add a plate reverb, and then we add upwards compression here to squash it all and bring it all up. So I'll go ahead and walk you through the vocal sparkle bus effects chain here so you can hear them all independently and explain to you what they're doing. And like I said, this is a pretty rough recording, but this is the raw vocal coming into the sparkle bus with everything turned off. So this sounds just like the vocal does on its own.
Well, my powder's wet and my humor's dry.
Now, the first effect here is the mid-side EQ. The high shelf boost is in the mid-channel only, and the high shelf cut is in the sides only. So I'm still letting some side information in, but the vocal sparkle, the high-end sheen, is going to dominate down the middle with the mids. And the guitars and cymbals and everything, the sheen that they get will be on the sides, which will help the separation. And then the real question would be, how much of each instrument do you want to send to the sparkle bus? And that, of course, completely depends on your mix. So here's the vocal with the mid-side EQ turned on, and it's going to sound really hollowed out because of this big low shelf, which is what I want because I only am trying to add in high-end sparkle here on the top.
Well, my powder's wet and my humor's dry.
And now next comes Stimulate, and I totally recommend this free plugin. This is a great exciter, and you can see I have it cranked to 100%. I have it kicking on just below 7K, and all even harmonics, no odd harmonics, because I'm trying to minimize the harshness as much as possible. And I have the mix at 100%. I'm actually going to go ahead and turn on the oversampling, and let's take a listen now.
Well, my powder's wet.
That's pretty brittle, but when it's blended in, it's going to add a nice little texture and color to the high end. And then next is more saturation. For the vocal bus here, I have this turned down a little bit. I have the drive set at 3. I like this little relaxed feature this plugin comes with, and I have the response right in between the mids and the high frequencies. So this is adding another layer of harmonics into this. Let's take a listen.
Well, my powder's wet.
And now I'm adding the plate reverb, and I did put a little bit of pre-delay on this for separation.
My powder's wet and my humor's dry, and the wolves are just waiting for the frost to bite.
Yeah, I love plate reverbs, especially on vocals. And next comes OTT. Like I said, I have the depth set at about 30%. I do have the low turned all the way down, and because OTT naturally has extra high end, I turned the high end down a little bit too. The main thing I want to do here is this 200% upwards compression, and I left the downwards compression at the halfway point, which is 100%. So this is going to push all of that reverb and harmonics up, and it's going to add a little downwards compression. So the idea behind this is to squash all of that sheen and sparkle into a narrow dynamic range, so I can just bring the fader up to add in just the right amount of high-end sharpness and clarity, filling out the top end of the vocal, and not have to just boost it with an EQ. It sounds nice and smooth when it's blended in very modestly. All right, so now we got the regular vocal reverb turned back on, and we're going to blend in some of this sparkle.
Well, my powder's wet and my humor's dry, and the wolves are just waiting for the frost to bite. Lips as cold as ice.
There we go. OTT is boosting everything and yet controlling the dynamics from the top down as well. So I just wanted to walk you through the setup there. And obviously, if you wanted to use this technique, you would cater it to what you were actually working with. A lot of times there's better ways to boost our high end than just using an EQ, because that can be pretty harsh, especially if your high end is already harsh. And this way we're doing it with added harmonics in a very controlled way. And now I can automate those sparkle faders and just increase the high end where it needs to so it can help everything stay out on top of the mix. And in these examples today, I'm doing this very over-exaggerated. In the final mix, I'm going to dial all this way back. And I also typically don't involve the plate reverb in that high-end sheen, but I needed it for this song, so I wanted to show you it too. Let's show you these sparkle buses one more time here, and listen to the high end. We'll start with them off, and then we'll bring them on in the chorus, and we'll go back and forth. It's great to use exciters and saturators instead of EQs whenever we need to add in harmonic content to brighten up the high end, but we don't want to make it harsh. And using some upwards compression to bring those subtle harmonics up is great. Whether you have a lousy recording and you've had to hollow out a bunch of your high end and you're trying to revive it, or if you have a great recording, instead of adding in the high air EQ boosts, you could try this method. There's a lot of different reasons you might try something like this. So hopefully that gives you a great idea. And when you're at it, you might as well go ahead and use the opportunity to do some mid-side work there as well. And even add in some extra reverb if you want, like I did on this one. There's any number of problems that this could be a solution for. But mainly I just wanted to show it to you to hopefully spark some creativity. So I hope you like that. Hit me up in the comments and let me know what you think. And I'll catch you all on the next one.